If you fight for your limitations, you'll get them every time. Each of us have these limitations about ourselves. You could say limiting beliefs, or they're more like self-imposed barriers that we put on ourselves. You know, whether that's I'm too tired, I haven't got enough money, I can't make enough money, I'm never going to get that job, I can't read this book. It can be anything, something really simple, or something like I'm never going to be the person that owns that car, or I'm not good enough to date that person, or whatever it might be, right? And a lot of the time it's self-inflicted. It's almost like it's a mindset that we put on ourselves, tell ourselves that we can't do certain things, whether it's I'm not smart enough or whatever, right? And it's not as simple as basically turning around and saying, no, I'm just going to change, I'm just going to do something different, because that doesn't work either. What you've got to realise is that the beliefs that you hold about yourself, basically, they're connected to your identity, right? So it's an identity problem. And your identity is very, very important, because, as I explained in other videos, your identity comes full circle into how you live your life, which is your daily rituals, routines and habits. So if you think about how you live day to day, that is your identity. You are the sum of your habits. But the strange thing is, even your identity also confirms those habits. So if you have a particular identity with a limiting belief, you'll actually manifest that reality. It'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you'll start believing that way. And it's really strange, because the identity that you hold about yourself and what you do daily are so interconnected that once you learn how interconnected they are, and the fact that you can change both of them subtly through incremental improvement, you can actually just rewire your brain and create a new belief and start behaving differently and start getting better results. Sounds like magic, doesn't it? Sounds like woo-woo. I used to believe this. And that's because the way our brain works, we have this thing called our reticular activation system, or we could say our selective focus, right? Where the more we think of something and more we believe something, the more we see of that and confirm that to ourselves. So to explain, let's say you was going to buy a new car, I don't know, like a blue BMW, say. If you got that in your head and you go and see this blue BMW, the minute you're thinking, I'm getting that car, all of a sudden what you'll notice is you'll start seeing more and more of those blue BMWs on the street in your life, because your selective focus, your reticular activation system, has confirmed that in yourself, and it's almost like your brain switches off from all the other cars, and the only thing they can think of and see is that blue BMW. It's the same with the limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. The more you believe and tell yourself that, the more you see of it. So it doesn't make sense. You literally manifest more of this stuff if you have a limiting belief about yourself. It just doesn't make sense. So you need to change that belief. And I've got my own personal story here on this. So, whilst I had many limiting beliefs growing up, come from childhood, I came from a very poor background, so I never believed that I deserved to have a good life. I never believed that I deserved to have nice things, get a good job. But I slowly worked my way to them things, to get all them things incrementally over time. So I've got a story about myself that relates to the limiting beliefs. So a few years back now, I was having some coaching from a business coach, a results coach, and I believed at the time that I said to Scott, I said, all the jobs that I get for my business are all small. I can't get a big contract, right? And he taught me that was basically an identity problem. He said, you're not getting those big contracts because you don't believe that you deserve them. So he asked me a question. He said, do you deserve to have those big contracts? And I sat back for a minute and I looked at it and I thought, well, he said, have you got the skills? I said, yeah, of course I've got the skills. I know, I've never had any doubt about my skills to achieve what I want to achieve. Never had any doubt. But somewhere in my head, and it was almost like a poor self-belief, I didn't think that I deserved to be that, you know, to have those bigger projects which gave me the success that I wanted. So he taught me to rewire my brain. He said, you've got to create a new identity for yourself. You've got to be the person that gets them bigger projects. You've got to become that person first in your head, like an identity. And then once you become that person, you just start acting in accordance with what would that person do every day? How would that person show up? How would that person go into a sales meeting? So the old me, with the old belief, would go into that sales meeting with imposter syndrome. If it was for a big contract, I'd have imposter syndrome. Somehow I didn't deserve that. My projects were this big and I was going for one this big. So I changed my thinking. It took a lot of work, but I got inside my head, even though I knew I had the skills, I created this new identity about myself. I'm the person that gets these bigger contracts. And today, I help people with this. This is what I talk about in my videos. So the system that I have works for all your goals, and it's quite simple. You've got an identity, right? And your identity is connected to your daily rituals, routines, and habits. So we are the sum of our habits that we do daily. So whatever we do every day, that becomes our identity. And if we're not happy with how we see ourselves, we've got to change something. If you think about it, what do? Well, you can either change your identity or you can change your habits, what you do each day. And if you're not getting what you want, so if you have a poor belief about, I don't know, being overweight, maybe your diet's not right. You can change the habits there and do something about it. You can either change a habit or change the identity. So here's what I do. Knowing that it's interconnected and it's like a continuous loop. So if you keep confirming every day your limiting beliefs, you'll end up getting those limiting beliefs. So you can change your identity. You feed a new identity in at the top. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to quit smoking, right? I don't smoke, but I can imagine, you know, it's an addiction, it's hard to do. Or you could say quit drinking, quit smoking, right? You smoke or you drink. So let's say I want to quit. So tomorrow you create a new identity for yourself the next day. I am the person that doesn't smoke. And then you start living according to that. So what does that mean? New habits. So now you don't smoke. Now you might have to do it in stages by cutting back. Same with the drinking. You just cut back. You might change the amount of drink and slowly cut it out, right? If you're an alcoholic, sometimes real serious addictions mean complete abstinence. And my mate Joel deals with that. He teaches people how to sort of quit from alcohol. You can do these things gradually, like particularly if you're sort of your health, right? You slowly start improving your diet. You slowly start getting more exercise, you know, whether that's working out, training. So where's the secret? You're feeding a new identity, right? I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to stop smoking. You then create some goals around it, right? And goals, if it's a big project, if it's a big identity shift, you need goals where you're thinking about the plan. Well, okay, so I'm not going to go out at the weekend. I'm going to start drinking this instead of this. You know, you create some strategy around it, and then in your daily life, then the next thing to do is to start changing your daily rituals, routines, and habits. So you stop drinking, right? You stop smoking, and then those new habits then become your new identity. So once you feed in this new identity, let's say you stop smoking or you stop drinking, right? You then create a set of goals. If it's a big identity shift, you need to create some goals. You need to know what you're doing. So let's say quit drinking. Okay, so I'm going to not go out at the weekend, or I'm just going to not drink this. I'm going to drink this instead. I'm going to make sure I'm in bed by this time, whatever that might be, you know. And you actually track this stuff, you actually measure it. And then when you come to execute it, it's executed in your daily rituals, routines and habits. So there, you know, you just don't smoke. You drink something different. You have a soft drink, or, you know, you maybe just drink water or something, whatever that might be, right? You might have to do this in stages, but it's all in changing your habits. And then what happens, once you change your habits, it then confirms your new identity. And the good thing about habits, we all know that we have to train a habit, force it by repetition. So if you just don't drink one day, that's not going to cut it. You need to continually do that every day. So if you don't drink the next day, you reinforce that habit. And if you do it again the next day, you reinforce it more. And you just keep going. And what's important is, let's say you're doing really well, 2 weeks, you've not drunk, and you keep reinforcing this habit. And after, you know, is it like 30 days, you know, you think about it, 30 days in, you've really trained a new habit. But even after that, let's say you slip up and you have a drink, right? It's not a disaster. You may have gone, let's say, 2 weeks without a drink, and then all of a sudden you have a drink. You're still better. So if you measure the previous 2 weeks to the current 2 weeks, as long as you're incrementally, whatever period you want to measure, whether you're measuring week to week, month to month, as long as you're slowly getting better in terms of improving your habits, you're going to change your identity. You're going to become that new person, and you reinforce it. And this is why I like journaling, because every day I track it. I track my progress on everything. So if I want to create a new goal, I first change my identity about that goal. I want to start a new business. Okay, I'm that person who has that business. That's what I do now. You know, it becomes a new part of me. I then create some goals which are like a project about how I'm going to achieve it. You know, might need to create a website, create a compelling offer, you know, get some followers or leads list or something like this, how am I going to market, create a plan, and then I execute it daily. And when I execute it daily, I journal. This is like your habits, and I might do 3 things a day towards my goal, 3 small things a day, incremental, Kaizen, continuous improvement. They don't take that long. Everyone can do 3 small things a day, whether it's 20 minutes on each one or an hour each one. And slowly, through repetition, you will confirm that habit. You'll reinforce that habit, and you'll create a new identity for yourself. You become that person who does those things. You are the sum of your habits. That's what your identity is. And you can tell yourself about your limiting beliefs. You change it. You no longer have those limiting beliefs. So just remember, if you fight for your limitations, you'll get them every time. So instead of fighting for your limitations, why don't you start fighting for what you want? Change the identity around those limitations to one that doesn't have them, to one that says, I am this person that does the things that you want, does the things, achieves the things that you want. And start acting in accordance with it by changing your habits. You may have to create some goals around it first, create a bit of a plan to know what you're doing, but you just start living accordance with it, and slowly, over time, through continuous improvement, you'll get your results. And if you want any help with this, just contact me. I'll put details down in the description. I've done this in many areas of my life. I help other people. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and see you all next time.